just put that one in the zone there.
Okay.
Are we live? Are we live?
We're going live. Yeah, we're going live. It's like Matt King says, you always have to be recording.
Always be recording. Always. That's a tenacious.
Always be recording.
Yeah, those fail.
We don't want to miss it.
I said all those fail army clips would never be possible if people were not recording.
Yeah.
Just everyday moment.
So officially, our biggest announcement is it's our 3rd year anniversary for Jake and I and making Turbo on these here YouTube channels. So just a round of applause for us. Yay! And we are officially closing in on completing pages 13 through 18. So the first half of our show today is going to be with our special guest, Alex Turbin. So we got some things we got to catch up with him on. We'll let him go about an hour from now. And then Jake and I are going to start getting into lettering these 6 pages that will go into the Turbo teaser. But Alex, how have you been before we get into business?
I'm great. I'm interested to see the lettering process that you guys have.
You will. It'll be live.
I'm gonna be watching when you guys let me go.
Just so everybody knows, our Jake and I sessions right now are pretty legendary in our own world between the two of us because we have 6 hours. We have over 6 hours of just the last time we went through the lettering. So it is very
painstaking,
creative.
Yeah. Well, we were doing it when we did pages 1 through 6. We were just inventing the wheel, and we were trying to figure out our process. And I thought it would be great if I give Kurt all the word balloons, the lettering for the balloons from a computer font that he will then go over. And, I said one of us will go over it by hand and make it into a hand font so it doesn't look computerized at all. And so we did that. And then we realized that we have another round because, it kind of gets hasty. It just needs to be touched up. So then I zoom in at like 600% and just like touch up everything. And then there's a new superhero out there. It's called Anal Typographer. And he flies from building to building and fixes like microscopic. Yeah, but then when you zoom out, you have a nice product. But when you're that zoomed in, you might be wasting a little bit of time. So maybe we'll just zoom into like 300% next time.
So you don't do it by hand, or you kind of do it. You do it digitally, and then you go over it by hand.
We lay it out. So each balloon gets filled in with the text, the type. That is then given to me. I then print out just the type to be able to then hand letter over the top of it. Scan, bring that layer back over to Jake, and then Jake tweaks it in Photoshop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Photoshop. So
have you both done the Ames lettering guide lettering?
Yeah, I can kind of do when I'm hand lettering, I can do it without the Ames guide just as good as with. So I don't really use it anymore, but I have them here and I use them in my classroom to teach kids about it. It's very helpful, especially if you're working at a big size. But if I'm working like these pages I'm just doing here, the process here for Turbo 2, it's going to be a little more streamlined. I'm just giving Kurt my hand lettered rough in blue pencil, and then I think we're going to just do a black pencil layer and then an ink layer. And then, you can always just, tweak anything in Photoshop on the final camera ready art along with everything else on the page, so I think that might work out better. But if I give Kurt, my blue pencil, and then I go over my blue pencil with my black pencil, that's kind of clean, except it's kind of hand done. And so there will be one last quality check at the end where I'll put on my white gloves and I'll go, aha! And we'll just fix up anything there, because at the end of the day, what I do is I just kind of like use the Option Command drag command in Photoshop, and you can just drag any one letter to another location and duplicate it. And if you have a letter that's funky, don't waste any time. Just cover it with another letter from somewhere else on the page, of the same letter. Right. And that seems to be the quickest way, because we have sped up from the first 6 pages to the next 6 pages. We sped up, and now we're going to be doing the next batch, and we should be better at it, you would hope, because intelligent creatures are supposed to learn from their mistakes.
Well, better and efficient. I think it's more the efficiency is what we keep having a conversation about, is and we're not completely in agreement. I like when lettering is wonky, hand wonky. As long as you can read it,
right?
I think it's fine. Because it should. My whole thing has always been it should be very set inside the images. When you digitally place lettering on top of hand-drawn art that's very well hand-drawn, it's weird. It's just optically weird. And I think a lot of people ignore the writing part of it because it looks so much like something in an application or a brochure or some crap you have to read, because of work. So, it's just, and that's all like subliminal stuff. So I personally like going, off road, if you will. But for Jake, he has this very, 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 very strict guidelines in his internalized mechanism of typography.
No, I mean, there's a place for it, I mean, you could say the same thing about any art style that you're using in a comic. There's quicker styles, and then there's more refined styles. Kurt and I have kind of settled in on this kind of meticulous process for our art. It seems like it's working. And then the lettering, we just need to kind of match how we started at this point. Maybe issue 2 we'll approach it differently. But
See, my lettering is I just digitalize. I just do it digitally in the program I use, and I'm not happy with it. I don't like it. But I hate my hand lettering. I don't think I've met an artist, cartoonist that likes either lettering or the final product of their lettering.
I am. I will admit it, Alex. I am.
You're
I don't
happy?
have an issue. With it. In a professional standing, if I was to be really, really like, crap, this looks like. People are going to think this looks like shit. You know what I mean? But like I said, at the same point, it's like, you're, specifically talking about your process in making comics, you put yourself on a monthly deadline to get a book out, random access. And so therefore there is this corner cutting, or just, making sure you're not going insane or driving yourself to a point of insanity. So, there's reality checks that I think, and you know what? God bless indie comics. I find there's so much forgiveness,
I definitely think so.
So,
and I think when you look at other people's lettering, they may not like it, but you think it's good. Like almost all the lettering I see by people, I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that everyone has their own style, but we can't all be Tom Orszewski. But what's the name of the font that you use, Alex?
Comic Sans. Sans.
Comic Sans.
The one that everyone says is the worst and you should never use.
Oh, the default on Microsoft Word.
It's like, it's the default. But you know what? I actually have another one that I downloaded, and I'll probably look for other ones, but I just think it's too kind of, it's just not straightforward enough.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is legibility. Like when I hand letter, I often, try to squeeze in words that don't fit and, stuff like that. So it loses some of its legibility sometimes. And this just keeps me from doing that.
Yeah, and legibility is probably the most important thing, but I mean, and that should be obvious, but
Right.
it also there's distraction, for me. Like if something is if some letters on a page are like different sizes, like wow, they're
Yeah.
big over here, but they're small over here. That's a distraction. And to me also computer fonts can be kind of I mean, it's not what we're aiming for. We're looking for like a craft brewed, product here that we're really taking our time on and everything. So, we wanted to make it like legible and kind of uniform, but not distracting and just kind of like blend in. And Kurt and I are also doing some stuff where we're graying it back, and we're also doing some stuff where we're knocking it out of black, and we're putting it in some places without any balloons. So we're thinking about all different things, but most of the time it's just in a balloon and the typical format. So we'll see. Sometimes you have to get creative in tight spots, and that's the other thing we do. It's kind of like I don't know if anybody appreciates this, but we're going to be doing these episodes where we're taking the words and from the script, and then we're laying them out in the actual word balloon in the finished camera ready art, and we're saying, oh geez, it may not fit like we planned.
Yeah.
So now, what words can we choose to
exactly.
Rewrite on the fly.
Changing the word "two" into the numeral 2.
Right, that's like when they asked Bob Dylan, oh, how did you come up with this like poetic lyrics for this song? He's like, well, I need something that rhymes with hat, So, anyway, yeah. So lettering is its own kind of like world, and we're gonna deep dive in there. So that's
awesome. That's awesome.
A couple times a year, we'll be doing that. That's a good thing. That means we're getting somewhere on the next batch of pages.
Yeah.
Now, topically, we're going to talk about the God you wanted us to name / create. Do you want to give us just to catch everybody back up on what it is you've requested of Jake and I?
Well, I have this long-running storyline that I'm doing, and in my comics, Random Access, there's like it's called the Return of the Old Gods, where they're being unleashed back into the modern world. And I actually, this newest issue of Random Access is the beginning of my storyline where they're first put away. Because they're just evil, they're not all evil, but they're all, self-serving kind of, I mean, I guess I would call them evil. And so I'm just wanting to create this universe of different gods. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a leather-bound booklet with all of the gods, and it's going to be kind of like the Necronomicon, because obviously this is very H.P. Lovecraft inspired. And so I was just asking all of my artist friends to come up with a different god, a different, type of god or whatever for this compendium that I'm going to be adding to Random Access and stuff.
So, yeah, we were thinking about it. Now, I had a question because you shared an image with us the last time you were on.
Yeah.
And I took a screenshot of it. And I was wondering if that was a list of gods that you wanted. You were given like the god of this or the god of that, and did you want all those things addressed, or were those things that were already addressed and you wanted people to come up with new ones?
There were just there's like 3 or 4 that are already taken. Like the God of Death was just taken by Jason Cavelli, I think it's. But like I said, that list was really just a recommendation. I don't want to limit anybody on anything. Like, if you guys wanted to do another God of Death, I would not be,
Well, I can understand you don't want. Yeah, I could understand why you don't want repeats, but it was also like, can you go off the menu type thing?
Yeah, you totally can. There's complete freedom pretty much, except like I said, the no tentacles thing. Whenever I show them in a group, it'll probably be tentacly, but individuals, it would just, everybody would be doing Cthulhu pretty much. I'm thinking, because I would.
Jake upstairs.
Okay, so I had to.
You back?
Had to run upstairs. Yeah, so I went and retrieved. So what I was saying to Kurt is, because what's really cool is if something that we already have in development that we can use in our world, that you could also use in your world. And
that would be fantastic. I would love that.
So we have this character Esoterra, and she is the first. So I started drawing a little bit, based on what you said, and then I realized I was drawing Esoterra, our existing character, one of our existing characters, and in our world, she is the first person that is discovered to have, abilities to manipulate matter and energy. And, she's very closely studied, and she becomes, a flashpoint, very controversial. This is off in the future. And what happens is, she becomes a cultural phenomenon for good and ill. Like half the people love her, half the people hate her, but there's all these people that idolize her, that dress like her. There's like, how like Bozo the Clown had like a different Bozo in every like TV market. So there'll be like Esoterras like in every area, like, on the corner of every supermarket. And, some of them are just like entertainers. Some of them, fancy themselves do-gooders, like superheroes and stuff. But she's really the only one with actual powers. As a result, she gets deified. And especially when she goes underground, because she realizes that she cannot let anybody get a hold of her DNA. And so she goes underground for a long time, and she actually goes to Europe, and she, forms the Casualties, which is like a team of crime fighters that basically just concentrate on rescuing kidnapped girls, who are also kidnapped for their genetics. So there will be a goddess version of Esoterra that's not the real Esoterra, and she will kind of take off a life of her own, especially after she's dead. But like we do in real life, like we turn somebody into saints, after they're dead, and we say, oh, they produced miracles, they walked on water, or they did all kinds of stuff, right, that may or may not have happened. So how would that work if we wanted to try to use Esoterra? Because I think that would be, we would have her ready to go, and then we would just need to identify what she's the goddess of. And
that'd be cool. That'd be great.
Great.
The only thing is, and I'm not like saying that I would show all of the gods in my stories anyway. If I get a whole bunch of them, but the gods in this world, in my Morgrim world, are very hands-on. Like they each control like a country or whatever.
Right.
So it's like you go from one country and it's sunny and stuff, and you go to the next country, and because it's blessed by the god or whatever, and then you have another country that you go to, and it's like all dark and kind of like Mordor or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that would.
What's the plan what's the plan for the tangible like product? What's the final like end result product where these are going to appear in?
It's going to be a story that I do probably next year is what I'm building up to. Like I said, I'm doing all of this prologue work in random access, where there's people trying to resurrect gods, and then they fail, but then eventually something happens that weakens the the fabric of reality or whatever. So then somebody does try again, and they do succeed in resurrecting, not so much resurrecting, releasing them, because they've been banished. So he releases them into modern day civilization. And then my stories will go on from there.
Right. So, and do you have like people? So, are there going to be like battle scenes where people are fighting the gods? And
yeah.
Right. Okay. And you say you want them all to be bad guys, or not necessarily?
Well, they're the old gods. When you think of the old gods, yeah, selfish. I'm thinking H.P. Lovecraftish gods. So
Right.
they're basically, chaos, evil. But I'm also thinking, they're gods, so maybe they don't have the morality of what we would have to. So I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Well, I love to hear the process anyway, as it's building up. Like, this is what I have so far. I do that all the time with Kurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Great. Well, if we can use Esoteric, we will definitely make a version of her that fits in with what you're looking for.
Oh,
And
cool. That would be awesome.
But we just need like to be clear what the requirements are so we can fit it in.
And it in the compendium that I'm going to have, it's going to have like a an illustration of the god, and then like a some sort of text saying likes, dislikes, walks on the beach kind of thing. So stuff like that.
Water skiing.
Water skiing, yep, they like water skiing. But just some kind of history background. So that would be really, really fantastic if you guys did something like that.
So I don't think we've ever gone over this on our episodes. And by the way, folks, if you're watching us on Instagram, welcome. But you should probably click over to YouTube. You can see a lot more of our screens. If you're watching on Instagram, you're probably only seeing one of us right now, and there's actually three of us all showing what we're doing. We're all drawing, and we're all inking, coloring, doing something. So we're live on YouTube right now, or anytime thereafter for your viewing pleasure. So I don't think we've ever gone over the kind of like the setting of random access. Can you take us through that, which is like when does it take place, and maybe a couple of the major characters?
Well, I have two major characters, Cyrene and Queller, and it's really just kind of. Do you guys like Mobius at all?
Kurt is a total Mobius freak.
Like all of his works are interconnected in either a loose way or a concrete way, and that's kind of what I do with random access. Like I definitely have this universe where all of the characters reside, but they don't necessarily have to be interchangeable or whatever, but like I have different time periods. Like this Morgrim thing is my newest thing, and that is basically like Hyboria, where it's like right after the dinosaurs kind of, and after the Ice Age kind of thing. And so then I have another time period where Queller, who is my marquee character, and he's immortal. So I have him going through the different ages. And I have Cyrene, who it's kind of a secret, but I guess I'll let the secret out of the bag. It's a fantasy setting, but it takes place in the far future when the Earth is going to be destroyed, and she lives in like a preserve, where it's like you have the regular humans, and they're going to escape Earth, but then you have the rest of this like national park or whatever, where you have all of these fantasy things going on. And then I also have the Cymborgs, which is a little bit more into the future, which is a robotic dystopian future kind of thing.
I like that name.
So everything interconnects. Like Cyrene is the a cleric and she prays to or whatever, deifies a god called Durana, and she is one of the new gods that kind of come around after the old gods are put away.
Right. So
hopefully that clarifies.
So you have, if I'm hearing right, you have two different time periods where this takes place. There's like a pre-technology period, and I guess that's swords and shields and stuff. I see swords on your drawing, right?
Yeah.
And then you have like
this
yeah.
is my Morgram, which is like a Conan era, because Conan takes place on Earth. It's just pre-modern society Earth.
Mm-hmm. And then you have like a futuristic world, and that's after the downfall of society.
Yeah, it's like like the Earth is going to be destroyed within several years of the story.
Right.
Hey, Alex.
But they don't know that.
Alex, are you familiar with Jack Vance's Dying Earth series?
No.
So a really like George R.R. Martin literally writes off of the same system that Jack Vance did. I'm not going to get into that part of it, but the thing that's really interesting that you keep markering on is, in the pulps era, all people were writing in the pulps were word counts. So you're paid a penny a word, and you needed to put a story together, and you sold it to a pulp magazine, which there were dozens of them out at, one point, 30s and the 40s and stuff. And then you went from there. Sometimes the publishers would make it hey, can you do another one of those? The last one was really popular. We got all these letters. Now, Jack Vance, like so many others, it's not like Jack Vance invented this. But as the 60s were closing in, I think it was actually late 50s, early 60s were closing in, the paperback market was they wanted to collect stories out of the pulps and then reprint them, but they also wanted them to be completely novelized. So Jack Vance's Dying Earth takes place where the sun's going to basically die out, and there's that mixture between technology getting so goofy, it's now gone back to like sorcery types of stuff. Yeah. But each one of the short stories is a different perspective, basically on the sort of same action and activity among these characters, or what's happening in the Dying Earth. Right. So, I think one of the things too in suggestion for you is, allowing specific things to become anchored in your world. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what, this is X, and then this is Y, and then this is Z. And then if, when somebody else is kind of like pushing into the space their own story vantage point, then it's like it's just exactly that. It's their vantage point. It's just their perception into the world. It's just anchored on X thing. That has the stability. And pulps are great reads. I love pulp because they go so fast, like a comic book. And they're so imaged. They're so imaged. And Jack Vance's Dying Earth series was just a collection, basically, of like, I can't remember, a dozen of these stories he would just yarn together that loosely for him was just basically X was the sun's going to die and we're going to die. And then Y was this sorcery, blah, 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 mechanic thing, and then Z was this character trying to get to, someplace or something like that. Right.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a long history of kind of like post-apocalyptic serials, and it's a genre now. I didn't realize until Kurt gave me Kurt and Dan Snow gifted me this book, and it's called like Things Get Wild or something. Excuse me. And it has like a very thorough index of every post-apocalyptic movie that's been made.
That's cool.
I know. So I'm just like, I just cracked the book and I'm just working my way through it. it's pretty amazing. I mean, they talk about Mad Max being the kickoff, but really that's only in the movies. You have so many like examples of pulp serials and sci-fi. I mean, the reality is our galaxy is going to be swallowed up by the supernova, but in like I don't know, like 3 billion years or something.
Right.
So we have lots and lots of time to figure this out, but there. I mean, I think there's just this general feeling like everyone's gonna die one day. What happened if the world died? And it's a great starting point for all kinds of stories. You have the whole zombie genre now. Where the world's taken over. That's kind of like a subcategory, and then I mean, to me, Mad Max was just like a Road Warrior. The Mad Max 2 was always just the greatest example of just capturing the desperation of people and this and like how some people band together to survive, and some people are just banding together to attack. To be aggressive,
Right.
and there's always kind of like that that kind of duality in all kinds of stories. I mean, there was some critic. I was watching Prometheus, which was the kind of like the Alien prequel. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was like
I still don't understand that movie.
What's his name? Stanley no, Kubrick, right? Was that Kubrick or was that the other guy?
Yeah, Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott, right? The Alien guy. Right. Prometheus was, it was a great movie, but it left me like really scratching my head in a lot of ways.
Yeah, me too.
So I look
especially the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, the great thing is that it kind of explains how life on Earth, could have gotten started, and that is a theory of scientists, that the first, like cellular life came, on like asteroids or something.
Yeah, I love that.
But but it's also possible that we were visited, by some superior beings, and they just dropped it in the river. That's what
dropped this in the river.
Right, that's what Prometheus suggests. So I go online and I'm like, all right, what does this all mean? And there was this great kind of like a review of it. I don't remember who wrote it or anything, but it said that all the characters in the story were one or the other type of person, and it's like either the person that is willing to to die to protect others, or the one that's willing to kill to protect themselves, or to better themselves,
Yeah.
And that's it really does like resonate, because in real life there's so many people that okay, is this a good guy, or is this maybe like a bully type person? I mean, you could go on any level and break people down into categories. So when you look at it that way, it's trying to just show that there's this eternal battle going on, and it's really just personality types. It could be different ages and technologies, and you could be talking about World War II and Hitler and Mussolini, and you could be talking about anything, and you just have these people that are willing to sacrifice for others. And then that ties into, I guess, the mythology of Jesus, and the mythology of you can pick your religion and pick your god and your time period, but the idea of morality and the idea of sacrifice for others and all that. So
right, and politically, or not politically, economically, capitalism versus communism and stuff like that.
Right, and that gets into like a more modern theme of like the good of the many versus the good of the few, and you might compare that, but it's not exactly the same. It's not exactly the same, because inside of each family you have people that are protecting. I mean, how many movies have there been where like there's some kind of hero character, but their partner is telling them, no, you just got to worry about our little world, our little family, don't try to save them, right? How many? So those are also common themes that come up again and again. But I love analyzing all this stuff because we're writing our own stuff, and you want it to be good. So you got to really see what's out there, and try to see how your stories fit into existing themes, how you make new themes, and how you can bring up these kind of like eternal unanswerable questions.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if you guys do this, but whenever I come up with an idea or a name or anything, I always look it up online to see if it's too much like something that has been done before. If it's been done like Morgrim, I chose the name Morgrim because his life is going to be more. There could never be any life more grim than a Cyclops freak. So I chose that and I looked it up, the word Morgrim, and if it's been used in other media or whatever. And there's been a couple is like in a video game and stuff, but not enough for me to think, oh, I shouldn't do this.
Yeah, you just got to watch out that Frank Zappa didn't name one of his kids that. That's the main thing you got to watch out for. I love hearing about this. Like Kurt knows, like we kind of have like like our roles, and that's why we're just so lucky to be working together. But and I'm like, the content guy, and I'm always thinking about this stuff, and I have tons and tons of ideas and percolating, and so I love when we have guests on that are also like, it's in this world, like when you close your eyes at night, every night to sleep, you're thinking about a plot.
Exactly.
Right.
So keeping us on track, I want to get to our second topic, which is Jake and I reached out to Alex and asked him if he would like to do a contribution to the anthology, our Turbo Teaser anthology, the third teaser, which is pages 13 through 18. And of course, Alex kicked back yes. But he would like to do it as also an issue of random access. Jake came back with, okay, name a character out of our, and I'm going to flash that up in just a second. And Jake's going to write the script for you. So I'm going to flash our End of the World index up. And here we go. And you've seen this, right, Alex?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, definitely.
So what are your thoughts about a Alex Turbin contribution?
Well, first, let me say it doesn't have to be just one of these guys. These are like major characters. There's tons and tons of like characters that either associate with these characters or are complete spin-offs. So anything's possible. But you're also welcome to dive into any one of these characters, whatever you think.
Man, I've heard you guys talking about most of these, and they're all interesting. So, are any of them taken by other people that are doing stuff?
We have a couple of 6-pagers that are written, and right now, as we speak, Ken Landgraf is working on a 6-pager featuring the casualties. And
the casualties.
Yeah, that's the one on the upper right. Yep. It's Esoterra, Hellclaw, and Cremita. The first sequential pages featuring Esoterra, Hellclaw, and Cremita. The first sequential pages are the ones that we gave you, but it's really only a 2-pager, so that's like just a little snack. We have a 6-pager written for Pitch Blend, which is not pictured, but she's part of the Rectifiers, and she's a team of a super squadron of enhanced females. There's going to be 5 of them that were all enhanced by Elavena when she was not even 14 years old, and she took all these like 18 to 20-year-olds and enhanced them and made a super squadron of females that that go out and rescue the kids that are being kidnapped because of their genetics. So that there's a 6-pager already written for that called The Company Man. Mm-hmm. And then we have a 6-pager written for a character named Wei Lu, who is kind of like a female master of kung fu, and she's a devotee of Esoterra. and she's trying to develop like mystical powers of her own, and she comes under attack. So there is a guy that is supposedly working on that 6-pager, but he is a student, I believe, at the University of Hartford in the cartooning program, and we met him at IC3, and he said he would like to take that on, but it's kind of those, all right, well, we'll see if he turns anything in. I told him to start out with a pinup, and we'll go from there. But okay. I wouldn't hold my breath. So I mean, he could come through, he could not. But if you're a student, I remember those days myself. You got to worry about your studies. You got to worry about making money. We'll see.
Yeah. Everybody has projects that they're working on. So when you pick up another project, it's you have to be committed to do it, but also other stuff comes up. Sometimes.
Yeah, and that's why we try to work without timelines or deadlines or anything, because we want people to be able to focus their attention on it when they can, and then just turn it in when it's done. We'll put something out when we have it in hand, and I mean, we are going to have the 6-pager from Ken Landgraf pretty soon. So before this year's out, we'll put that with our 6-pager from Turbo, and then we'll put that with our Chromita 2-pager, and we'll wait to see how long it takes before we get another 6-pager. Right. But we also have the 6-pager. We're also going to do I think the 6-pager of pencils at the same time for issue 2, so that's going to be interesting. And then we have all this stuff on our Substack, so we're gonna like cobble together like some kind of nice anthology before the calendar year is up.
Right.
So that's a long.
So would you rather do a 10-pager or 2 5ers or a 6 and a 4 or something like that?
I can do it any way you want. All I need to do is work with you, on some kind of like basis where you're telling me like I wanted to have this, and this, and then I could find everything else, and give you what you're looking for, to get your you get your thrills, and have fun making comics. And there's so many different things. The only real rules is that it's in this world where the DeHubertons are this evil corporation or the evil trillionaire family. There's a resistance to them, and so there's like resistance zones, and then there's like corporate zones, and but as you get closer and closer to the year 2222, things get more and more dire, and then finally there is a mega apocalypse where most of the big cities are taken out by radioactive gas. There's going to be some kind of like superhero-ish superpowers, for Esoterra, Hellclaw, and a few people, a couple other bad guys. I'm working on a couple of other characters that I was going to run by Kurt the next segment where we have available for that. But I'm developing a character called Hawkwind, and we're getting into these giantesses now. Because I have another 6-pager. Well, the one that Ken is doing is based on the casualties rescuing this really tall teenager named Charvel. But when Charvel's not a teenager anymore, when she's grown up, she's going to be one of the enhanced Super Squadron ladies, and her DNA is going to be taken to make Hawkwind. And Charvel's going to be 6'8", but Hawkwind's going to be 7'11". And so they're going to get bigger and bigger, as giantesses are created. So there's kind of like the kung fu angle with Wee Lu characters. There's the giantess angle. The P-bots is kind of like the robot angle. There's not only pleasure bots, but there's also battle bots and every kind of automated weapon. The Duke could be like somebody that's into wrestling. Somebody that's into pit fights. He's gonna be like a pro wrestler that becomes the first pit fighter, and then he becomes legendary. The Q Druids is mostly about science and stuff, but there are there's some intrigue there with like all kinds of inventions and like kind of getting into quantum science in real life, and bringing that in. And so
I like the Duke.
Yeah, the Duke is fun. The Duke is gonna have.
But is he too much of your story? Is like he's a major major part of your story. Like how many of these things are going to be in Turbo Pit Fighter?
Well, they're all in the world, and
right.
The Duke is long gone by the time Turbo is alive. So in Turbo Pit Fighter comics, he's just kind of legend.
Right. Okay.
But when he's alive, there's going to be a couple different eras, and I'll describe them. When he's young, he's born into this family, and the mom and dad are inventors of these sky cycles called Ducavita sky cycles. And so there's like a biker gang that adopts them because they're the only ones that don't have government positioning. Like you have to report your GPS in real time every moment to the government. So they build these sky cycles without that, and so it becomes the preferred sky cycle of this biker gang called Onyx MC. And when the Duke is really young, let's say from teen years to early 20s, that's his world. He's kind of like a sky cycle raider where they hijack corporate things, and he fights battles, and the government tries to enlist him as a marshal, and so he's kind of like the sky cycle guy. Then later in his career, he'll become a TV wrestler, one of the biggest wrestlers, and he'll have all these wrestling matches, and that eventually leads to pit fights. When he's older, like in his 50s, he'll become the governor of Michigan, and he'll get arrested. So that's all mostly for pros, because it's all just like sitting around. There's not adventures, but his final act will be this frontal attack at the De Hubertons headquarters in a giant mecha suit. So I could make this great battle scene with the older Duke going into this mecha suit and doing a frontal assault on the De Hubertons. And that could be very action packed if you like the kind of Transformers and Pacific Rim type stuff.
Yeah.
But there's also kind of like this ninja part of it too, where he's actually, turns out, spoiler, he's not actually in the suit. He's at the same time everybody thinks he's in the suit. That's just a decoy, and he's actually in these underground tunnels where he will penetrate the De Huberton stronghold and take out like 3 to 4 of their oldest patriarchs in a real devastating blow. And then
I'd like to draw that.
Yeah, okay, we can work on that. That's kind of a pivotal scene. So the Duke will be kind of like a whispered legend in the Turbo world, because not only was he the first pit fighter and everybody idolized him for that, and he was a wrestler, but he also was this governor that was arrested for being too much of a do-gooder, and he had a secret lottery thing, but then when he's put in prison, he invents the Duke coin, and it becomes the second most popular currency in the whole world, and he becomes one of the richest men, and that's why he can afford the mecha suit and all that. So so we can have fun with that.
When you write it, are you going to if you don't have other people doing the different iterations of the Duke, would you want to just touch on, in the beginning, have a little prologue of his his exploits?
Yeah, well, we already do. We have we have text that appears in our Substack, and it's online for anybody to read it if they go back into those installments. But I have a running tab on hellclaw.com/Duke, and you can see there's tons of writing there about this whole thing that I laid out, plus much more detail. And what we'll do is we'll just take a starting point and then an ending point, and then you'll tell me I want 5 pages, 10 pages, whatever you tell me, and we'll work up some action packed comic pages, so that you can pencil it and ink it or whatever you want to do. Are you looking to do pencils and inks?
Yeah, I mean, unless you guys want to ink it.
Well,
your plate's pretty full.
I think Kurt and I discussed this. I think what we'd like to do, because we know your style, I think what we'd like to do is we'd like to get your pencils and inks, and then we would like to each have a pass at it where we just kind of add details and kind of enhance it a little bit.
Cool.
Right, Kurt? Right, Kurt? Is that what we said?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm into that.
Because that would just like kind of layer on like more onto the page so that it matches
and
kind
Alex,
of like the density.
And Alex, you don't have to do the lettering.
Thank God. I definitely dread with random access. I dread lettering day.
Yeah, well, if you just want to hand letter it rough on the page though, so we know the area that it's going to take, that would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we need that word balloon. Yeah, word balloon placement too, because I do that as well as a part of the layer that gets handed back to Jake that he places on top of the finalized art.
Right. Because when I do my own stuff, this is what I do. I don't do a script or whatever. I write it as I'm doing it. So I have all the balloon placement and stuff like that.
Yeah. So this will be exciting because the Duke is he's kind of like a foundational character in the society, where he represents the resistance and a lot of different. I guess there is going to be this divide between male and female, and so he's a really good example of a male who is part of the resistance, because in the story most of the resistance is female, and the reason is because of the pleasure bots, have won over the the loyalty of the males, to the corporation by and large, and so that's gonna hold across the country and across the continent, except for the males that are part of the resistance, and there's got to be like husbands and wives, and there's got to be sons, and everything. So it's going to be an interesting thing to write about, because the Duke will have his own kind of like team.
Is he a good guy?
Well, he's a resistance guy, so he's against the Dehubertans, and he does represent the people a lot more than than some of these other like mercenaries or some of these other self-interested parties. So
right. But when you talk about him sneaking into the Dehubertans and slaughtering them, it doesn't feel like he's a good guy, but like you're right, he's part of the resistance, so I guess he's a good guy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know about you, but I have so many friends that tell me the same thing, and it's like, I'm like, you shouldn't say this to people in public, but they say it all the time. They're like, if I had a clear shot at Trump, then I would be willing to do life in jail, whatever, execution with that. I would be happy to do it. And I'm like, don't say that kind of stuff, But it's kind of that, like, imagine, if you see the harm that's going to happen in the future from this family, right? I mean, it's not like he's going to kill women and children, but he's going to go after the the oldest patriarchs that are most protected in the sanctuary, and the most kind of like, hands off, separated, from reality, separated from everyday people, trillionaires. It's going, I mean, and plus, they tried to kill him many times, they tried. Right. So, so there's this big distraction, and then it isn't revealed, until like the second part, or the second half of the thing, what he's really doing. I mean, actually, Kurt, I was thinking about having that remain secret for decades, that he did all that, because the Dehubertans were not about to publicize that their patriarchs got killed, and that they took it on the chin.
The suppression of
right, exactly. So because we have all that, like, the propaganda warfare and everything. So we have, so it will be kind of like a cut in the timeline, to I guess to have like a flashback of what really happened in the tunnels.
Right.
Like maybe there's like one survivor who witnessed it, talking on their deathbed, And then it because it does eventually come out and become public, and that's why the Duke is, becomes even more legendary.
Well, I think so, but you're talking about showing it though, right?
Yeah, the comic pages will have all the action. Yeah.
Right. Because I think if you show it, I don't know. There's a strong point for showing it and not showing it, like the Jaws, not seeing Jaws versus seeing Jaws kind of thing.
Well, we'll have a very nice setup to it, and one thing we did with the Ken Landgraf 6-pager is we're going to have a full page of text that's going to be a lead-in to the 6-pager. It's going to set up the story, like, "Hi, my name is Charvel. I'm very tall for my age, blah blah blah," and then I was kidnapped, and then it's going to be like, page 1 of the sequence. Granted, not everybody's going to read the whole page of text, but that's why we intersperse it with at least like 2 or 3 illustrations on the page, to kind of make it a flowing zine page.
Yeah.
But we can very easily do that too, to give a lot more information out ahead of time, so that by the time people start reading page 1, panel 1, the scene is already set, that people understand what's going on. So that's another way to really convey a lot of info. And I would say that I'm just thinking, as we're talking, we will have the end of the mecha suit battle, and then there'll be a character that says, "And that's the way it was for 27 years until so and so made a revelation on their deathbed, but they released all the videos, and we're going to show you now for the first time what actually happened, that when the Duke's body was really recovered." So there'll be that's when we'll show that he gets in there and he does like total ninja damage to all those guys, and he'll have like this strike force team that they all perish except for the one survivor, and the one survivor was held his tongue or her tongue the entire time that they lived out their life, because they knew that they would be annihilated if they revealed what really happened.
Right.
But everybody has their body cams in the future, right? So they'll have all the footage, so it'll be great. Yeah, should be a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to do that. That'd be awesome.
All right, cool. So this was a very, very productive episode. Then that's why we have you on. Kurt, are we also trying to squeeze in the Robert Crumb this episode, or no?
Yeah. While Alex is here, you go ahead and share that.
All right. Well, you guys,
we'll let Alex go, and then we'll start getting into our next thing, which is what is it? The text letter.
Yeah, that's a separate. Right, that's gonna be a separate taping, right?
Well, we're just gonna keep going.
Oh, we're just gonna keep going. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, we have people. We have people in the. We got 2 people right now in the YouTube, and yeah. So keep
folks, if you're watching us live, feel free to put in your questions, comments, concerns, funny stories. Maybe Kurt will read them on the air. That'll be fun. So I need to, if I'm going to do the Crumb thing, I need to run upstairs and get the book. Should I do so?
Please.
All right. You guys talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
So what is this Crumb thing you're talking about?
So there's a new biography that just came out, and Jake got tickets to the author. I can't remember Dan. I can't remember who wrote it, but the book tour. It was at the 92nd Street Y in New York City, and Jake got tickets to it, and so he got to see the man himself in person. So,
so I was going to say R. Crumb. So you guys have both seen the movie, I assume.
The documentary on him?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, 1994, I believe, Terry Zwigoff documentary.
Yeah.
He spoke about that. That was a real revival for him. Like what he was explaining is that he was famous in the 60s, and then when Zap Comics came out and Keep on Trucking and Fritz the Cat and everything, but then he was really a name only in the comic world. And there's a really big difference if you're popular, in mainstream American culture versus the comic world. Like, we're all comic geeks and we're like, oh, Crumb, he's one of the biggest names ever. But the average person on the street didn't know what we're talking about.
Right.
So when the documentary comes out, it really revives him again. And, so now he's, there's a lot more demand for his art, and he's getting invited to more shows and he's doing bigger things. So he said, that was a pretty big, occasion in his life, even though it didn't necessarily make him look great. It told the true story of his dysfunctional family and all that.
The only thing I remember of that movie is his brother eating the string.
Right.
Yeah, Max.
That's like the only thing I remember.
Well, his brothers definitely stole the show, and and Crumb looks like the normal one, even though he's like a perverted, in his words, they show me like a underground perverted artist and everything, but but Charles was descending into madness, and he was also like a prolific cartoonist himself, so that kind of steals the show. And then his other brother, well, yeah, he was like very extreme, eating the string, exactly. So they did post online like I think an 8 or 10 minute segment of the of the sit down, and it's really good, like 4K video, and they ask him interesting questions. They picked like some moment, which was really a highlight. I think I taped the entire audio, but you're not supposed to do that, so I can't like post that anywhere or anything. But it went real quick. It was just like an hour, and you can't really cover that much in an hour. And they took questions from the audience.
That's why you got to buy the book.
Yes, yeah. And I started reading the book. So my friend. So here's how this all happened. I told my friend Rick, who's an autograph dealer. I said, Rick was also like a punk rock producer, like back in the day, so he's got a lot of stories. But I told him Crumb is having this talk at the 92nd July, and he immediately said, well, let's get tickets. And I'm like, forget it, man. It's like $70. And he was like, I don't care. He goes, get 3 tickets, you, me, and my brother. So I got 3 tickets. And then as I'm getting the tickets, it turns out that you get a signed copy of the book with the ticket.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes, that's very cool. So here's the funny thing that I wanted to tell Kurt. We get the signed copy of the book on the way in. And the first thing I do is I want to see the signature. Is this really signed, right? So you go in here, and there's this book plate. This is called like a tipped in book plate. That this way, the autograph person doesn't have to like handle all these books. They just have to handle these little cards, right? And then you get some kids that like put one in each book, because there was like hundreds, if not thousands, of these. And this is a brand new biography that just came out. This premiered on April 15th, the night of the symposium, or whatever you call it. And so you get this signed book, signed by the author and by R. Crumb. So this was great, everybody was opening it up and looking at it, and I was asking I asked this complete stranger who was sitting next to me, is yours the same? Did he write anything, or did he just sign it? And the guy's like, no, he just signed it. And I was like, that's weird, because on mine, he wrote something. And then, my buddy's like, what did he write? And let me show you what he wrote. So I asked a bunch of people in the audience, is there anything, did he write anything else? And they were like, no, he just signed it. Some of them he put 2025, but, on on mine, he wrote Jesus fucking Christ. Now, it's pretty evident that he was getting frustrated because he was probably signing but you could tell that's his handwriting, and
oh my God, it's awesome.
Yeah, and so
it's so brilliant.
So then on the way out, I told you my friend's an autograph dealer. So on the way out, he was like, "Okay, are you allowed to buy extra books?" And so when we go downstairs, he had those R. Crumb sketchbooks, and they were like $70 a piece. They were not signed. And then they had tons and tons of these, and you could buy as many as you wanted for $30 a piece, and they're signed. They have the book plate. So Rick I think he got 4, and I got 1 extra one for me. But when we were buying them, we kept doing the same thing. We kept opening them up, and then we kept looking at the book plate to see if there was anything different on any of them, because if he draws a sketch, or something like that, like forget it. And the guy that was working there, he was from the book company. He said, "What are you looking for?" And I was like, "Well, he wrote something on my card. I was wondering if any of these others had messages." And the guy's like, and he goes, "No, I put these all in myself. They only have either R. Crumb or R. Crumb 2025. That's it." And he's like, "I'm positive. I looked at every single one of them." And I showed him. I said, "Well, look at my book." I was like, "Look what it says." And he goes, "Oh my God!" He goes, "That's so cool." So, I don't know how. I was just like, 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000. That got something weird. So that was what I wanted to share with Kurt. And then, if you have any questions, he did talk about, his world and, what's going on lately with him. And, it kind of brings the viewer up to date. But, I'm a huge fan. I know he's very controversial. Probably the first topic that they brought up is like, how do you deal with the criticisms? Because nowadays, the Me Too movement and the sexism and everything about like, sexual fantasies of women or dominating women and everything. And he's like, it's just the opposite in my stories. The women are the ones, dominating. But he says, sometimes there have been these, these kind of like unbridled fantasies where he's, in charge. And he makes clear that these are all, like his dreams, and fantasies, but that in real life he's just like constantly rejected over and over and over, and he said like the only way that he ended up like getting lucky in life was after his fame, and he said even then it was only a certain type of person that would gravitate to him, and
people even weirder than him.
Right. I mean, and this is not a full defense of Crumb, because Crumb did put some stuff on the printed page that is literally considered illegal nowadays. But Zap number 4 was taken off the shelves even back then, and it became a huge deal. Today you have a lot of like feminists that say no, you got to cancel him, and all this stuff. I mean, for me, I just love his drafting style. Like I just love the way he shades and hatches and and draws. I mean, I admire the fact that he was this lightning rod and like pure unbridled honesty and everything. But for me, the number one thing has always just been the way he draws. The way he renders characters and the way he cartoons, that was always my number one thing.
So not to go off the deep end, but the guys are familiar with Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube video that Jordan Peterson says that R. Crumb is his favorite artist because of his complete honesty with his Jungian shadow or shadows.
Yeah.
And I really touched base with him as a creative person in art school. So I was already being encouraged to really dig deep into one's psyche and explore and express yourself. That whole dynamic. And in defense of somebody making something so horrendous as Jake had leaned into, it still needs to be seen in from the individual's context. That's the most important thing, because there were so many takeaways from the documentary when I saw it, and the one was him repeatedly saying, if I don't draw, I'm just going to kill myself. I'm just going to lose my mind. Yeah. And this is something I struggle with. Not that, but what I'm going to bring up here. We are in such a highly commercialized state of existence across the board. Everything has to have, in order to be successful, some numerical a number assigned to it, like how many copies you sell of that, how much do you make per copy, these types of things. And I'm not discounting that or trying to create a thing, but the thing I struggle with is there's so many things that I want to investigate about myself creatively, and I don't want to share it, right. At least not until I'm dead. But it also creates like this question to other creatives out there, like, are you doing your most honest work?
Yeah.
And I feel like and it's one thing I have to say in getting back into the arts and comics being part of it, because I'm part of the whole fine art scene too, and life drawing and going to gallery shows, and I have friends who are successful artists, with the whole thing. But I often, will poke the bear occasionally, which is like, well, is this your most honest work? Oh, I gotta feed my kids, I gotta, you know what I mean? Like, you have this whole dynamic. But, I have a big issue with the idea of art being completely commercialized to a point where it has to be and look like that, where when you take somebody like R. Crumb and you look at his just complete legacy as it will lay out there, you and I challenge anybody, give me somebody out there in comics that was that honest. Put you know what I mean? I think it is one thing to say, hey, yeah, I love the way he makes marks. I love the way he told stories. I love whatever. But to be that committed and honest is why he's so successful and so rich, and why his art is in high demand. It's not because it's commercially viable. It's because of the honest commitment to having an open dialogue and a conversation. It's just something that is very much in my craw, if you will.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole generation of indie comics artists that are, trying to go that route of. I heard saw somebody say something about, if they saw another comic about somebody and their roommates, they're going to kill themselves. But I mean, that's what so many indie comics artists do now, or they have previously, is just, and because of R. Crumb, is the everyday life kind of honesty that they are trying to portray.
I would really recommend people get this book. I'm only 20 pages in, let's say, something like that. But already it just so revealing, and it goes to the backstory, taking it back to like his parents and grandparents. Yeah, and that's powerful because you talk about Jordan Peterson, who's like this open, sexist guy, and he's like holding up Crumb's work as an example of what you should do. It was Crumb's excuse or his explanation or whatever to say, well, in '68, we were just trying to break every boundary, and we were a bunch of young punks that were just trying to make it as controversial on purpose as we possibly could, because you could, and there was like a new freedom, just to sell, in adult shops and everything, that you didn't have to worry anymore about censorship and Mickey Mouse and, the code or anything like that. And so, he just kind of shrugged his shoulders like, I'm sorry, he's had to, he's had to make excuses for decades ever since because of the cultural change in society. But
I've never seen him. I've never seen him apologize. I mean, in a sincere way. That's the other thing from the documentary.
Not apologize.
The documentary that where he was being interviewed by a young woman, and young woman corners him and says, "Well, my brother used to read your comics, and he ended up in whatever kind of situation he was, but she ended up coming across it." And the look on his face was, very honest. I can't, I'm not going to try to put any other kind of word to it, but the honesty of it. And he does go, he makes that clicking sound in his mouth. He twists his head and he goes, "I'm sorry." But then it's like, well, what can I do about it?
Right. I mean, she had the same comic and she didn't do anything bad. Yeah. So there's that thing. I mean, what I wanted to say next was about the racism stuff. Because he has this character, Angel Food McSpeed. It's highly offensive to some people. But when I'm reading this book, what you come to understand is that Crumb's uncles were literally these guys from like Philadelphia area that would go breaking the windows of black people's houses to make sure that they move away. And, the stuff that they talked about and everything. And so his work was kind of a reflection about America, and all of our warts and all of our things. And, but at the same time, the KKK, reprints his episodes, of stuff because they don't see it as satire. They just see it as straight out, like, great stuff or whatever. So, everything has an explanation to it and everything. I mean, he's not a bad guy, but he did, break a lot of norms. And it wasn't just him, it was, Spain, and it was, all those other guys,
Robert Williams,
S. Clay Wilson, just really poking the eye of, how far you can go.
American moral.
I would say everybody should read the book because the book is pretty critical in a lot of places, and although he approved the manuscript and everything, he says that he was cringing a lot reading it, but he couldn't argue that that it wasn't accurate. So that's why I think it's just a valuable thing, and he's willing to be the guy to take, and that's what the author, had to say was that, Robert, again and again with the documentary and now with the book is willing to be the guy, the test case, if you will, and, and there's something to be said for just unbridled honesty if you're an artist, because nobody else is, not me, not you, not anybody, nobody else is as free and is willing to take risks and everything as Crumb was. And even those other guys like Spain and Clay Wilson, they were just making fictional crazy stuff. Who knows if it was autobiographical in any way, or if it was just like, releasing angst and releasing, bile and venom and everything, so but really telling the story, really telling, I mean, introspectively. And Crumb is really his worst critic is himself. Over the years.
Yes, I was going to say exactly the same thing, Jay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
So we can let Alex go.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say I'm gonna bow out and let you guys do your lettering.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time on Sunday to join us. And as always, we're gonna be in touch.
Yeah,
awesome.
And just one last thing, Alex, is I do plan on buying the Epson scanner, the Epson Workforce. It's priced at like $225, $229.
No, don't. Oh, wait. That's not the tank, right?
No, it's the one that Kurt is recommending.
Don't do it.
Don't do the tank.
No, get the tank.
Oh, get the tank.
Oh, I don't know. Is that a bigger investment? Because I really want it for the scanner.
It's a bigger investment, but ink wise, I did this because I got my ET 1600 after I bought a I think it was an Epson or something like that, but it wasn't the tank. It was the cartridges, and I returned it because you can't even print like one comic book with it before the ink runs out.
Oh, it sucks all the ink out.
So the ink is horrible, and I would not go with the cartridge. I would definitely get the tank, 100%.
Well, I need the model number, but honestly, I was just pricing out, large format scanners, and it turns out that the Workforce is, only a couple of dollars more than a scanner. So I was getting the scanner.
That's what I think I had the Workforce, and I returned it for the tank one that I have.
All right. Well,
I'm really telling you, especially if you're going to do any kind of quantity of printing, then it's a mistake to get the Workforce over the tank.
Okay, Epson tank. I don't know if you have a model number, but
yeah, I have the 16. It's the ET 16600. But there's another one 16650. That is supposed to be faster, and that's the next one that I'm going to get.
Right. All right. Well, that's so good advice.
Yeah. I message me and we'll talk about different printers because I would definitely try to change your mind on the Workforce.
Gotcha. All right.
Talk to you guys later.
Cool beans.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Peace.
All right.
Always fun to have Alex on. I love when he's talking about his world. That
we don't feel so alone.
I don't feel so alone because I do all the other time. I want to tell you in an upcoming segment about Hawkwind and what I got so far for her, but because it ties into Esoterra and the Marauders and just all this other stuff. But let's get this going. Okay. So I think I'm gonna have to resituate my camera if we're going to be able to show on screen what I got going on. Which I can do, I have done, but I have to move my camera onto like this little stand I have. Right now it's on the arm.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I mean, I think if we just get, I'm gonna keep us from going too deep right now today. Yeah. So then next week you can have your setup. Be solid and we can go deep because I think we've gone pretty deep just in the last hour 20 minutes. So but we have people. We've got 4 people right now in our YouTube. I just want to say thank you. If you do have questions or comments and you're working on something, stick it in the chat. We always love seeing what other people are doing and keep
link to your
if you're on Instagram.
Yeah, link to your website.
Yeah.
Let's see what you got going on. Oh, right, Kurt. You know what I want to
I just
go ahead. You got something first?
Oh, I was just going to say, I just followed somebody who put themselves in there in the chat. So, that's always something that we'll be doing too.
I wanted to show you something that I stumbled upon. Oh, look, this looks like it's breaking. I wanted to show you something that I stumbled upon. So I'm going to share my screen momentarily and see what you make of it, because I think I'd like to try reaching out to this person, but what the heck is this going on? So I saw a comic and I didn't buy it, but I looked it up. Oh yeah, because I just got this eBay shipment, and I'm psyched to unbox it on the next Comics and Influence that we tape. But I looked up this comic, and I think it was this one right here. And I was like, "What the devil is this?" And it says it's Double Edge Comics. So I go on the Google and I go, "What is Double Edge Comics?" And I looked up this thing, and it's doubleedgecomics.com. And talk about a throwback to HTML days, right? Look at this website. But it looks like it's up. I mean, it looks like it's still alive. And this guy, Richard McDougall, he's in Bohemia, New York, which is upstate. And he has all these comics. There's no information about them. And then all you get is this kind of like low-res cover. Spirit of the Dragon.
Go to that Sin one to the left. Go to the left on that Sin one. I think I've seen that one. No, yep.
Sisters
I've seen that one.
Number one.
I've seen that one. Yeah.
So what are the insides?
I can't. I would go that they're black and white, and they're probably early '90s books. But yeah, you got to email. Yeah.
Demons of the Mist, Time Gate.
Time Gates. Wow.
Yeah. You got issue. Time Gates had number 4. The Ordinary Guy, number 1. Oh no, number 0. Yeah, and so this looks like a real moment in time. But you can, according to this, all comics $3 each. So that's about what they were selling for from this eBay seller. Why not get them from the original author? Get the original story, Town of No Tomorrows and Escape World, and then this is a 404. Escape World is a 404.
That means I think that means the site it's been hijacked.
No, I think it's a dead link.
Yeah, but why is it showing Chinese?
I don't know. Where it might have been hosted.
It might be hosted on a Chinese.
Yeah. So here's Chemical Factor, and it looks like a couple of different art styles, but this one, look at this, Heroes Incorporated. This looks like AC Comics right here.
I think you found something.
I know. We
need to investigate this a lot.
Find out if this person lives and if this person's around. Yeah, look at this. So, and then there's this weird moire pattern on all this. So I don't know if there was a bad scanner, but the presentation is not the greatest. But the comics look very, very intriguing. So next thing to do is reach out and contact this guy. Hopefully nobody that's watching this live is going to beat us to the punch. But I wanted you to see that so we could follow up at some point.
Sure.
Right on. So, back to it. Now, we're going to be taking pages, 13 through 18?
Yeah, I sent you the scans.
Right, and I have the scans on a jump drive, and I have them ready to be put on the white computer. But before we do that, I think we need to find the dialogue printouts that they correspond to. This is page 12. So here's page 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. This is a great part of the story.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a folder here of the dialogue all printed out. Oh no, actually, I'm gonna just ignore that. I'm gonna go right to the Quark file because I don't know if that reflect the latest. Let's go to Quark. Let's boot her up.
People are like shaking their heads right now.
Beam me up, Captain. It's unavoidable. I don't know if I could just kind of like aim this down at my work area, but I could also move the camera very easily to a table mount that I have. Quark Express. Yeah, we're gonna find the dialogue for it, and this is probably the last time I used Quark Express. Was to do this. I do have to do my resume over. Something interesting that I'm applying for this summer is the Metropolitan Museum of Art has this Met Educator program, and I just had to put in all this stuff. I had to get like letters of recommendation and lesson plans and all this stuff. And I realized my resume hasn't been updated since I got my last job in 2017. so I update my resume using Quark, and I have to go back in there and go do that. But
still have the font.
Yes, I would just use GIN condensed, which is pretty popular font. I think it's pre-installed in Macs in some programs, but except Word. And it's great when you're at a room, you just condense. You guys might be noticing, wow, it takes a long time to open a program on these old computers. Yes, it does. And now I'm going to go to Open Recent and Turbo teaser pages 7 to 12. I think that's where we're looking. Yeah, I hopefully I'll find out if I get that summer gig, but I think it's only like 2 weeks where you have to attend in person, and then you have to do I think 3 to 4 field trips during the school year for next year. So it's a pretty good commitment, and in time wise, and it has like a stipend, and you get a lot of I guess privileges to go to the Met anytime you want and attend all these other functions, etc., etc. All right, let's see now. I'm gonna skip ahead to so this is where we left off, and so I'm going to take this jump drive now and insert it so that I can get the pages that you scanned and sent to me, although they're probably higher res than I need. They only need to be 72 dpi here at size. And I want to preserve these pages so we get some new ones going in. Quark Express, for those of you that are not familiar,
no longer exists.
Is it really gone?
Oh yeah. There's no updates. There's no anything. No support. Nothing. Because I think what happened is it's it folded or it got consumed because at the InDesign, Adobe might have put the last nail in their coffin, because everybody ended up. I remember, man, it was like 2001 was such a pivotal point, especially for technology, because it was one of the reasons I started getting out of web was action scripting, and DHTML was like, you had to have skills in order to really make money at building websites, where prior to that, it was pretty much anybody could make money, with the basic HTML and Flash and all that kind of stuff. But I just got, I don't know. I didn't want to put any more energy into it. So, but I still have all those basic skills. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, well, you notice how rusty you get. That's the thing I'm seeing
Well,
here.
you just don't have that. You don't have that fluidity of moving, especially with like shortcutting. That's always whenever I go back to a program I haven't been to a while. That's the first thing I'll go online and look for is a key for all of the shortcuts.
Right, and that's what makes you like not just good but fast and good at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I just sized this at 101%, and I'm going to go in and try to figure out what the next text is. So let's zoom in and see. Do you think this? Am I like upside down or anything? I don't know if anybody can follow this along, but
No, you look fine. You're fine.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, because I will be zooming in and zooming out. So I see here, what the hell, and hang on, Miss High Heine. Here I go again. And it looks like the bad guys are talking first. They're shooting. She throws this like keg of alcohol, and they're shooting at it. So we have. I gotta find it. Hold fire, hold fire. No, is that? Oh yeah. No, wait, it's. Oh, all right. So where do we start? I don't know, Charlie. Who the F is she? So you know what I did here? I did color code these. So I think this is oh. All right. So I'm gonna just start laying these things into the possibilities. This says oh. No, wait, that's Turbo. So here she says oh.
Yeah.
Now Turbo says something really brief. Gotcha. All right, that makes sense, right?
Yep.
And hang on. All right, hang on, Miss High Heine. Here I go. That's probably here, and that looks like a tight squeeze, so we're gonna have to work on that. What the hell? No, wait, it's hold fire, hold fire. So is this guy saying what the hell here? And then this guy's saying, so this looks like hold fire for sure, because he realizes it's flammable. And then is he saying no, wait, it's? I mean, we could change this to anything we want. That makes sense. Now, I don't have anything for Turbo on the next panel where everything's blowing up and the guys all kill themselves.
But isn't that the whole Heine thing?
That's next. That's down here.
Down here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could tell by the length of it. And then she says, gotcha. And that's it. I don't have anything for him. He's going to say like erg or something. Let's see what this other stuff is here on the page. E, no, that's her. All right. Well, I think that's all I got. I can check the printouts. But what the? No, wait, it's hold fire, and then Pacow. So she could say something like, what did she say right there in panel 2? If we had to invent it. Who the F is she? That's going to be the next page.
So everything on the right-hand side is for that page, or it can be for
the whole.
Oh, look at that! Oh boy! Oh boy! Okay.
The whole rest of the book, it's all here.
Oh my god! Do you have all those pages printed out?
I thought I did, but they don't match exactly, so I must have updated it at some point. And this is weird because I guess this is enough for all the pages. It's only like half. It's only 2.5 pages of stuff, but it is kind of. I did kind of pack it all in here because I was gonna print these all out on like little labels, Little sticky labels.
Cut them out individually and then paste them in.
Sticky labels, yeah, that's what I did for my comics in the 90s. And I had the good sticky paper. It prints out perfectly on a laser, and then you just cut them down in little rectangles or octagons, and then stick them in, and the problem solves. But then, of course, over time, they're going to peel, and they're going to get the adhesive is going to make the page rot, and all kinds of other problems in the future. But
we didn't care about that. We needed to get that comic book out, man.
I think that's the cool rough-hewn look that collectors want more. I don't know. Like, here's the Jack Kirby piece, and it's got like a whole panel that was whited out, and so under there lies, the first draft. We're going to use X-rays to try to find out what it was. Another thing about Quark, if you forget to hit save every once in a while, you are screwed.
Doomed. Oh, I know. I've talked about that. Oh my Lord.
That is one problem that humanity has.
Doesn't go away.
The dynamic autosave, don't even think about it the other way. All right, so here is the manila folder that holds all the old printouts from 20 years ago. And there's, I guess, another set of pages here. I have some early sketches. I think I'm pressing buttons here, which isn't good. And let's try and find the dialogue printouts and try to match them. Here's some, for folks, if you're watching now, here's a very early Turbo sketch before she was anything. She had a mechanical glove on. I guess I was sketching things in. You could even, I don't know if anybody saw that. You had phone numbers of collaborators. I think I just gave away Bob Seska's phone number. This, of course, was the very first sketch, or the very first sketch where I had the name together of Turbo Pit Fighter, and that would be the very preliminary incarnation. Let's see, we have all this here, these roughs. I think I showed you these before. See these yellow pages? These are the roughs of all the pages with a ballpoint pen. And, what everybody does, we were talking, everybody, like all the guys that we interview, they say they thumbnail it all first, get it together in your mind. Okay, and where's the letters? Here's Mr. Ike and Mrs. Ike before you ink them. Here's the unbeknownst one, preliminary sketch. Maybe I should leave this out because we're getting closer to designing him for the first time. Unfortunately, that search came up empty as far as lettering. So let's see what else we got here. This is a pile of stuff I'm putting on the side for you when I see you. So far, there's only 3 in there, but I think my latest haul is going to be something in there that you're going to want to get off me unless you already have it. Here's our Turbo teaser, folks. It's still available for $3. A couple copies left. Where are the letters? I put them on the side so we would have them available, but I think it's been like 3 weeks before we got back to this. And it is getting a little piled on here. Here's all the pages for Turbo number 2, and then all the character designs. But where? This is something that we should have done before ahead of time. Anybody in the comments? Bored out of their eyes, bored out of their minds, ready to gouge out your eyes yet? But you know what? I might have to skip the printed ones because I think they're put away in the cabinet. Unless they're
yeah. So the explanation of what's going on right now is, the project Turbo was abandoned in 2001-ish, and I was getting the pages. I never received the pages to ink. But Jake was still moving forward on anticipating. And so by using his pencils in Quark, and then obviously, dumping in all the text and making these anticipated text boxes and the formatting of these pages off to the right that you keep seeing, they would have gotten printed out as stickies. And then I don't know if you would have shared that joy with me, where I would have to sit there and cut out, put that in there. So now we're at that point where we're trying to decipher the blocks of text. And I love that drawing. I want to ink that one day.
Turmoil on the Planet of the Pleasure Bots.
So yeah, we've got to. It's not only reverse engineering, but it's literally like archaeologically digging for it. But the thing I'm going to say, Jake, is like, good, I can see that. But to help, I'm going to write in on my your pencil printout versions that I always keep off to the side while I'm doing the inking, just to make sure there's some clarity from your pencils to my inks. But the the thing I'm concerned about going forward on these next 6 pages is, I'm a completely 110% visually based person, so I need to see what's being written already and placed in the text boxes. So when we start making some final decisions, for like X, and then we have a text box that needs, dialogue or something, then I can contribute at that point. So if anything that we do in the next, I don't know, we have like another 15 minutes because it'll be a 2-hour podcast at that point. But if we could get like maybe panel 1 and 2 texted in, then you'll have the week to be able to set yourself up for success next week.
The Quark file. So now we just have to go through these pages and see if there's anything here that's not in the Quark file. And the quickest way to do this would be to just make up everything on the balloons right now. But we have to go back to see what we were thinking, back in the day, because there's some good stuff that we want to preserve. And
ringtone? I just checked something on my Instagram, and of course, you can't. I don't understand. Do you have any advice for any? Jeez, Chris. All right.
Okay.
Instagram's broken.
So yeah, this I'm looking for. That's my whole. All right, I think I got it. Now this, I don't remember what this font was called, but back in the day when I was working in electronic prepress, I had access to so many cool fonts. I mean, the Adobe library, they were licensing to print studios and stuff, and I found some of these were like handmade, but I found this great font. This font was great. If I would have had a copy, if I could get my hands on a copy of this right now, it would be great to use for certain things. Here we go. Stop. I want to speak to Mr. Wappy at once. That was on page 11. But here I got a little label for page 13. Caught hold fire. Let's see how many of those lousy pukes I can tag with the little pea shooter. That was the previous page, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's page 12. That's panel 1, page 12.
That was the last page. Now,
yeah, it finishes. The last thing said by her when she's about ready to send the sky liquor over over the counter is, "All right, you tweaker jagoffs, catch this."
Right. That's the last thing. Okay. So
page 12.
Yeah, so we're okay with panel 1. We have what the hell, and no wait, it's hold fire, hold fire. Then what Turbo is saying is a mystery because it's not on this page. Oh, it might be this. Oh, fuss him. Now that is, just so you know, a Hungarian curse, and I was writing with that because I used to use those Hungarian curses when I was that age, when I was hanging out with my Hungarian friends. And I thought it would be interesting to use for the future because it sounds like fuss, but it's actually a Hungarian curse. I'm not sure what it means, but, my friend used to say it every time he dropped something on his foot, real heavy. And his father used to say it. It's not in the Quark file. So whatever Quark file I ended up with ended up being updated without it. Ammo's out on this one. Yeah, so ammo's out on this one was the previous page. So we have a free hand right now to invent whatever Turbo is saying in that small word balloon, and it looks like it would fit 2 lines. So it could be long-ish, or it could be just one word or phrase. Yeah, we could. It looks
do we have the? Are we set on the panel 1? These 3 balloons.
No. So we're set on these 3 panels, but not this one, and we're missing a comment in panel 4. So panel 2 and 4, we have to invent comments like between the time that I give it to you and now. But these other ones, all we have to do is just neaten them up. Let me get this better on screen. Oops. Okay. So get into the action. The flammable alcohol comes over the thing. They react by shooting it. They blow themselves up. It's like supercharged radioactive alcohol of the future. What does Turbo say after they blow themselves up and she's running away from the explosion? Holy
do you think it's explanative, like just being just commenting on that, or she's making her way to the doorway to get to her money and the and trophy girl? Because then there's like the way I see it this way, Jake, is you have 1, 2, 3 things said by Turbo. It's a 1, 2, 3 to keep moving through these 3 panels. Then there's a reaction by the goof, and then there's another reaction by trophy girl. So just me riffing on this little thing here, I don't think is a smart go. Like I said, I would rather deal with something in these 3 that moves the story along panel by panel, and obviously by commentary from Turbo's perspective, and then be able to fill in, if we have or not, what's there. So are you seeing anything in the page on those text pages that are basically saying, filling these 3 blocks?
Yeah, we have all the panels from the old text, but for 2, unless we change anything in the old text. And the 2 that we need are Turbo running away from the explosion in panel 2. What is she saying? It should be like an interjection, because the viewer is seeing this panel and seeing the explosion, and should be having the reaction that Turbo is espousing. Like, holy shit, I can't believe my eyes. But we only have space for like 1 or 2 words, or maybe like 2 or 3 words.
I mean the whole, like they.
I think I'm gonna go with
holy. They took the bait, that kind of thing. Is like, they were dumb enough to shoot that thing, like it was her or something. Like those idiots.
Right. Right, that's a good point. It could be something like idiots,
Yeah.
So yeah, because I was gonna say like holy crud, but that might just be.
Well, it's just so it doesn't. Like that kind of stuff is lazy, in my opinion. No offense, but and as I keep reporting, pointing us back to just using these 3 balloons to kind of help move the paneling along. Because you have what's in this one here. I see you have this one filled, right?
Down at the bottom.
Panel 3.
Yeah, it says, "Hang on, Miss Hi Heine, here I go again." So we can definitely talk about editing that, but it doesn't have to be the thing that you think about in first second. You can think about it for 10 minutes. No wait, hold fire. It's hold fire. So only the one guy is a dummy. The other guy was trying to tell him not to. I'm already starting to fix the
there you go.
Kerning.
There you go. Okay, yeah.
But Quark seems weird right now. It's not copy and pasting. So I want to duplicate these. No, it's working fine. I think it's me.
You're old. It's old.
Okay. No, wait, it's. So I want to get this on the next line, and there's so much spacing I can't see it. Why can't I see the next line? Yeah, it's sometimes it is a font that doesn't agree with the system programming. I think a programmer could tell you better, but so many problems on computers lead back to fonts.
Yeah.
For some reason, executing code in a font. And I think this thing just literally isn't responding. So that's bad. But let me see if I could get a hold of it. Yeah, it's not me. It's everything I'm doing. It's not doing. I guess I might have to.
Because we're like I said earlier, we are hitting a 2-hour mark. So
yep, I'm gonna restart the program. I think we gave for the video. I think we gave a good taste.
Oh heck yeah!
Lettering head, but I want people to say, like, if you're in this for like the educational aspect because you've never lettered a comic before, you can see us 2 bumbling clowns trying to get this thing done, and and the added complication of the fact that we have a 20-year gap. I think at this point like a 23-year gap in between the time we wrote the dialogue and we're trying to actually put it in, physically, visually.
Yeah.
So we can come back to that later. I'm gonna reopen this program, but we don't have to do that now. And
all right.
I don't know if you want to take us out. I think I did have some catch up on some sci-fi movies. I have one sci-fi movie that I saw since we last hung out, but we'll save that. And then we're also saving for the next episode on the index where we did we do Hellclaw or just Esoterra of the casualties? I think we did Hellclaw.
Let me check here. I need a visual.
It would have been in the title, right? Speaking of bumbling clowns, do you remember seeing?
I think Q Druids are next.
Do you remember seeing this?
Seeing what?
What I'm showing.
All I see right now is a screen of your laptop.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm not showing that. I'm not showing that. I'm showing Hillclaw.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, you're stuck on.
No, I see it now. I saw that last week. Yeah, because you were explaining the helmet and everything.
Okay, so that means we went over Hillclaw, and so the next is Chromita.
Okay.
Right. So that's what we have to do next week, and yeah, I think we're pretty organized. Other than that, we got folks. If you want to see our other interviews with comic creators, we just had Alex Turbin on live today, which is great. And he was drawing live, and then you can see all of our interviews where we show the artwork and we interview live some other creator. That's called Indie Creator Exchange. And if you're interested, because you make comics, you got to send us one of yours, and we'll send you one of ours, and then we just kind of review it on the air together. We have the flip throughs, which I can't wait to do because I got an eBay haul. I just nibbled. I think I only spent not even $30, but I got 6 good pieces that I got to show Kurt and see if I can make him jealous. And that's called the Comics That Influence. So we have those series, and then see us back here next Sunday, about 5 after 10 or 10 after 10, and bring your artwork and draw. Or if you're a commenter, feel free to join live and give us a hard time because, God knows this is kind of a specialized program here, right, Kurt? we have to.
Well, I say off camera to you, and I'll say it for the record: is we're not trying to be the Johnny Carson show. We're not a high level production. I've got each of us are doing 3 hats, 3 different jobs at the same time. And, the whole idea behind this is to just really document our journey because we only have Sunday afternoons to spend together and work on the same comic books. So I feel no regret, no embarrassment. It is what it is. And I just want to thank those that came through and hung out with us. I really do hope we inspired you to draw, work on something. And if you ever care to share it with us, please do. But other than that, Jake, it was a good day.
You had a good point. The point here isn't really to have a podcast. It's just kind of accidental, incidental. We're making a comic, and this is the comic here that we're making. So join us if you make comics too. There's nothing better than drawing live together, and we figured out that you could do it on video. And we started to get 3 people on at a time now. Sky's the limit. This is a great format. Anybody's welcome to take the idea and go do it. Please make indie comics. Cool. So we'll see you next Sunday.
Yep. See you next Sunday, Jake.
Okay.